I'd like to call to order the regular school board meeting for Washington Township. Let the record show that 4 board members are present. We're going to do a roll call since we're not all here. Mrs. Horth Kruger,
Here.
Mr. Turner, Mr. Fensel,
Here.
and I am Deirdre George Davis. And we will start this meeting like we do all with the pledge. We can have our cheer team lead us off.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like it. Okay, first up, we have board recognition. Dr. Taylor.
All right. Thank you, President George Davis. Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Woodson, and good evening, Washington Township community. Nice to have so many people present here tonight. We have a lot of recognitions to get through. So as I call your name, please go ahead and work your way up towards Dr. Woodson to receive your recognition award this evening. First up, we have Olivia Alvarado. She is a sophomore at North Central High School who is a member of the Business Professionals of America through the business department offered at JEL Career Center. Business Professionals of America is coordinated by the business teachers at JEL. In December, Olivia had her first round of business competitions known as the Regional Conference. Her 2 competitive events were graphic design promotion and fundamental desktop publishing. She advanced to the BPA State Conference held this past March. At the BPA State Conference, Olivia placed first in graphic design promotion and second in fundamental desktop publishing. This past weekend, Olivia had the opportunity to travel to Chicago for the BPA National Conference. At that conference, she had the opportunity to compete against other high school students across the nation. Congratulations to Olivia for her hard work. Next up, congratulations to Lucy Mann. Lucy is an 8th grade student at West Lane. Her National History Day project was about the history of anesthesia. She had one of the top projects at West Lane. From there, she competed in the regional finals, advanced to the state finals, and in April won at the state finals. She will represent West Lane in the state of Indiana at the national finals for National History Day in Washington, D.C. over the summer. Congratulations. At this time, I'd like to invite a member of the foundation up for this announcement. Dr. Rudy Wilson was Washington Township's first African-American administrator and held numerous leadership roles within Washington Township School District throughout his career, including principal at both West Lane and Northview, as well as assistant principal at North Central High School. As a beloved educator and a sharp, dedicated administrator, Dr. Wilson spent his career striving to assist students inside and outside of the classroom, inspiring students to work hard, focus on their education, and do the right thing. He took pride in developing students and faculty to fulfill their aspirations, influencing and mentoring students and associates to further their academic goals. Dr. Wilson passed away in January of 2023. His family, who is here today from out of state, facilitated 2 $1,000 scholarships in honor of Dr. Wilson for students from the class of 2024 who have shown a commitment to academic excellence while positively contributing to the student body and the local community. These students do not know they have been selected, so as a bit of housekeeping, please make sure you connect with Dr. Wilson's family and a representative from the foundation in the hall before you leave after recognition with the school board so they can congratulate you too. We'd like to congratulate at this time Asia Still and Carter Brains. Asia has been recognized as one of the top 25 students in the class of 2024. At North Central, she's been involved in International Baccalaureate, National Honor Society, Marching Band, Pep Band, Junior Spec, and Best Buddies. Outside of school, she has worked as a camp counselor at the YMCA. Carter is also graduating in the top 10% of his class. At North Central, he has served as a senior class president in National Honor Society and on the varsity swimming and diving team. Outside of school, he has worked as a lifeguard and swim instructor in the community, and for 2 years has helped raise funds to support swimming lesson scholarships. Congratulations again. Congratulations to North Central High School English teacher Jocelyn Sisson for being recognized by one of her former students, Grace Chun Sao Lee, as the teacher who was most influential in guiding her during the formative stages of her academic career. Grace will be graduating this year from Stanford University School of Engineering and was selected as a recipient of the Frederick Emmons Terman Engineering Scholastic Award for distinguished academic performance at Stanford. Grace selected Mrs. Sisson as the teacher to attend the Terman Awards ceremony at Stanford in April. We are very proud of the outstanding influence Mrs. Sisson had on Grace, as well as many other North Central students. Congratulations again. Next up, we'd like to recognize Miss Susan Henry. Is she here? Fox Hill, Miss Henry. All right. Miss Henry recently received a prestigious Teacher Creativity Fellowship grant from the Lilly Endowment. The Teacher Creativity Fellowship Program offers encouragement and support to Indiana's K-12 educators working in public and private schools by awarding grants of up to $15,000 to support personal renewal projects designed to help restore commitment to the education profession and stimulate creativity, which promise to enhance the educational experiences of their students. Ms. Henry's grant submission is entitled From Meager Beginnings to Inspiring the World, a road trip adventure exploring the roots of Laura Ingalls Wilder, Walt Disney, and Georgia O'Keeffe. During her upcoming journey, she will discover how the foundational influence of farming, nature, and travel sparked the imagination and creativity of these three famous Midwestern storytellers. We are certainly proud of you. Congratulations again. Congratulations to North Central High School journalism and student media teacher, Mr. Tom Gata. Once again, for being named the Youth Journalism International's Journalism Educator of the Year, based on heartfelt letters from many of his students. As part of the Youth Journalism International's recognition of Mr. Gata, they noted that he has been honored often in his career, which is a sign that his scholarship, teaching, and warmth has been recognized by not just by his students, but by his peers around the nations. Congratulations, Mr. Gata. Congratulations to Eastwood teacher Kim Matsuoka. Mrs. Matsuoka has been selected as the state finalist for the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Mrs. Matsuoka is 6th grade math teacher at Eastwood. She's now one of 4 Indiana middle school STEM teachers eligible to receive this award, the nation's highest honor for U.S. K-12 science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and/or computer science teaching. Congratulations again. We're extremely proud of you. Congratulations to Mr. Jeffrey Berry. Mr. Berry is an 8th grade math teacher at West Lane Middle School. He was West Lane's nominee for the Indianapolis Indians Teacher Appreciation Game. He was then named as one of the final 3 awardees and got to be on the field prior to the game. In the May 4th Teacher Appreciation Game at Victory Field, the Indians awarded Mr. Berry with a $300 prize pack as the winning middle school teacher. Congratulations, Mr. Berry. The Student-Centered Support Award recognizes a district that has expanded access to evidence-based supports in the areas of academics and student well-being. Our student services teams have engaged in intensive professional learning to implement comprehensive school counseling and school social work programming that is aligned with the national frameworks for these respective areas. This award and grant funding will allow us to have the resources needed to continue to grow this work. We are thrilled for Mrs. Jen Dotson and her team. This grant will engage the student services teams in collaborative learning and systems work, including continued work with trainers from Hatching Results and other professional learning offerings. Congratulations, Mrs. Dotson. The Washington Township Schools Foundation has provided millions of dollars of private support for our schools over the years. Sponsors of their organization serve as a crucial part of making that support possible. The page provided in your board materials and located at the foundation website shares the full list of business partners provided over $70,000 for Washington Township students in classrooms in 2024. Tonight, Washington Township Schools is recognizing the 6 companies who are supporting the Washington Township Schools Foundation at the highest level of sponsorship. That's the master and graduate levels. So first up, we have Schmidt Associates, represented by Eric Bramel, principal with the firm. We have Bose, McKinney, and Evans, represented by John Mays, a partner with the firm. Business Furniture is represented by CEO Mary Beth Oakes. Huntington Learning Center is represented by Lisa Fraser, Bob Mack, and Rachel Hartman. Surlis Acres Howard Wealth Management, Greg Akers was unable to be here tonight, but we'd still like to recognize them. Stiefel Endeavor Investment Group, Steve Pratt, Senior Vice President of the Endeavor Investment Group, was also unable to be here, but we'd like to recognize them as well. And then finally, Allison Transmission could not be here this evening, but we'd like to recognize them as well and thank all 7 master and graduate level sponsors and to the other 23 businesses who prioritize Washington Township Schools in their support this year. Our students are benefiting greatly from their generosity. And then on behalf of the entire district, we wanted to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude for your invaluable contributions to the Central Office and Early Learning Center projects, Schmidt Associates, and Smoot Construction. Your dedication and expertise in design and construction services have truly made a significant impact on our facilities and will impact the students of Washington Township for generations. The work you have provided with the district has not gone unnoticed. Your attention to detail, problem-solving skills, and commitment to excellence have been instrumental in ensuring the success of these 2 projects.
They come.
We understand the challenges and complexities that come with new construction and renovation projects, and your ability to navigate them with professionalism and proficiency has been commendable. Your passion for your work shines through in every task you undertake. It's been a pleasure collaborating with your teams who are dedicated to their craft. Your contributions have played a vital role in shaping the future of our district, and for that, we are truly grateful. Once again, thank you for your outstanding commitment.
Thank you, guys. So, no, it's amazing. Thank you guys for being a part of this. Oh, where's the intern? Um, We're gonna have to. Is that the last? Oh, no, it's not. See, look, I'm in the window. How to get in the window. Thank you guys. It's amazing.
And then finally, for our surprise announcement this evening, it's the Superintendent Scholarship Award sponsored by Everwise. This annual Superintendent Scholarship is made possible from generous support from Everwise Credit Union. The district would like to thank Everwise Credit Union and Jeremy Riffle, Holly Galetti, Jana Mal-Nakarmi, and Leslie Green, Everwise representatives, for their generous contribution and continued support of Washington Township schools, and in particular for supporting the Superintendent Scholarship winners. We are extremely grateful and humbled by your continued support and ask that you join Dr. Woodson at the front as we share this exciting announcement. This scholarship award is different from others who may look for exceptional academic scholarship for 4 straight years at North Central. Instead, Dr. Woodson chooses to focus this annual scholarship on a student who has shown the most improvement during the 4 years at North Central. We are extremely excited to announce this year's North Central High School recipient, Miss Yuritsi Contreras Lozano. If you could join Dr. Woodson and Everwise at the front. Yuritsi has worked diligently the past 2 school years at North Central and improved her academic performance and school record. She has worked her way into earning both the Technical Honors Diploma and Academic Honors Diploma right before graduation. She has accomplished this by retaking 7 core courses to meet the grade criteria for the Honors Diploma. She is engaged in a diverse course load over her high school career and has been willing to take on challenging classes outside of her academic comfort zone. In addition, she has accomplished this despite working the past 2 years at local restaurants. Thanks again, Everwise, for your continued support of Washington Township Schools and this annual scholarship. Congratulations again to Yuritsi. President George Davis, that concludes board recognitions. Thank you. No.
Oh.
Just been a great partnership. Say thank you.
Oh. Very nice. Yeah, we probably should.
That's correct. All right, we're gonna come around.
No, right? The projects. Ooh, does anybody need any more proof how amazing this district is? You're all right. Ooh. Oh, now my favorite part, school spotlight. This evening. Oh. I'll give everybody a moment who wants to make a quick exit. Is she all set up? She is. Okay. Exit after public comment. They're so excited. Look, Mrs. Inman. I love it.
Make sure that she knows they're there.
So this evening, if our little friends didn't give it away, today's school spotlight is Clearwater Elementary. Mrs. Inman.
Thank you, board. and Thank you for welcoming Clearwater Elementary. I did bring some guests with me tonight. I want to start with points of pride for Clearwater Elementary. Did I introduce myself? I'm Maravine Inman, I'm the principal. Also, our assistant principal, Rachel Terry, is here across the room. Staff recognitions and points of pride. Our technology teacher wrote a grant and created a robotics club this year. It was 3rd through 5th grade, and they competed in their first competition. And he's expanding next year to lower grades as well and trying to expand the program. And our gracious PTO has agreed to help with the expansion of that program financially. Our media specialist has 4th and 5th grade student librarians. They help shelve books. She teaches them about being a media specialist, and they volunteer their time during their recess or their lunch to do that. Our music teacher has 2nd and 4th grade productions that I will say will rival many high school productions. I think our parents will agree to that. Our art teacher, we have a fine arts night every spring, and she showcases every student's artwork in the building somewhere, so please come through and see that. We have an extensive after-school club program, which we're fortunate to be able to do because our teachers volunteer to run those programs. We have a chess club, running, soccer, spirit club, Girls on the Run, a girls leadership club, game club, just any kind of club that you might be interested in. If a student comes and asks and says, why can't we have this club? We find somebody who can lead it for us. Solid points of pride for our students. Our 5th graders did capstone action project for the well. It raises money for water in underprivileged countries. Our 1st grade does an economics unit, and they run a winter market, and they sell products that they make, and they learn about the economics of running a business, and then they sell those to other students in the building, and the money is used to support other families in our school. Our 4th and 5th grade students can sign up to be a mentor. Ms. Terry runs our mentor program and our behavior support team. We have many, many students who have gotten involved with that, and they mentor younger students in the buildings. Our students are consistently performing at or above school and district goals on NWEA reading and math, iRead, and other standardized assessments, and that comes from their very hard work and their commitment. For our school community, families are choosing Clearwater to be their school. We have a wonderful school community. In addition to our homeschool boundaries, we have over 60 limited choice and non-resident students who have been accepted to attend Clearwater. It's evident that our school community shares a sense of pride with our learning environment and our academic success. We have a supportive PTO that provide grants, field trip funding, family assistant funding, engaging families in school-wide events. They never say no. They always will find the money. And so we are really lucky to have such a supportive PTO. Next is our focus on equitable achievement. So areas of academic achievement celebration. 91% of our 3rd grade students have here the preliminary spring results. It's the highest in the district, and it's the highest spring pass rate since 2019. So we are on track. We hope for a 95% pass rate, which is the state goal for every school in Indiana. 69% of our 2nd grade students passed iRead this year. It's the highest in the pass rate in the district. This is the first year that 2nd graders in Washington Township took iRead 3. So this was a wonderful first year, and we were really proud of our 2nd grade students and our 2nd grade teachers. We have the highest NWEA math and reading scores in the district. Both exceeded 79% proficiency at the winter benchmarking. 71% of our multilingual learners met the winter reading achievement goal. 82% of our ML students, multilingual learners, increased their overall WIDA proficiency level, and we have 15 students exit the ML program. based on WIDA scores. And we had 5 students who scored a 4.9, nearly exiting the program. The big celebration for our multilingual learners and their teacher. Areas of continued growth that we're going to focus on at Clearwater. We are working on closing the achievement gap between white and Black students and white and Hispanic students in English language arts and math. We want to improve our proficiency for students with special education support on iRead and iLearn. And we want to continue to increase the number of multilingual learners moving from level 4 to level 5 and exiting ML services. We also, like I mentioned, we want to increase our iRead pass rate to 95%. Promising practices that show the closure of the racial achievement gap through achievement data. We have daily small group instruction in reading and math based on individual student data, looking at strengths and needs, and monitoring, students monitor their own data and their progress towards their goals. We have grade level weekly planning with instructional coaches for intentional planning for whole and small group instruction. We have weekly PLCs with analysis disaggregated by subgroups. We have professional development embedded in weekly team planning and staff meetings. We have a support team and a tracking system through MTSS to proactively support and monitor academics and behavior for our students, and also the social emotional needs. We have a strong system for tier 1 academic and behavior expectations. Provide high level instruction and engagement for all students. So a little bit more about Clearwater are our celebrations for all the great people that we have. I'd like to start with our Clearwater Spirit Club, the social justice advocate student recognition. There are 30 students in our Spirit Club. These members are just here to represent the club. They collectively embody kindness, positivity, and inclusion for all at Clearwater.
They doing a cheer?
Are they doing?
Are we getting a cheer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
I was like,
It's a serious business. Blue. White. So cute.
Congratulations, good job.
yeah.
Like, and I'm out. That's great.
Good job.
Good job.
You come back through.
Right? Yeah, come on. It's okay.
Good job.
Oh, you're shaking? All right.
Oh, you're gonna shake a hand. Oh, yeah. Good job.
Oh, I got the pom pom.
Good
Great job.
Good job. Good job.
Great.
Great job. Thank you. I'll be able to
Yes, right.
I can see it.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Next, we have the Above and Beyond Parent Recognition, Maya Witzenman and Natalie Troyer. These sisters spend countless hours supporting Clearwater. They have worn every hat on our PTO board and look for ways to better support students and staff at Clearwater. Next are Natasha Gray, Fitzgerald, and Josephine. Once you see Fitzgerald, you need no description of support. Fitz is a trained therapy dog. We cannot thank Natasha enough for sharing Fitz with Clearwater. The sheer joy, love, and kindness our students and staff receive and feel from them is amazing. And there's a new baby in training, Josephine, but she didn't make it tonight. So thank you to Natasha and Fitzgerald. And to Mrs. Bond, who brought her to the bottom.
There we go. Yes. Yes, he deserves a medal. Oh, fun. Hi, buddy. Hi, look at that smile. How are you? Oh, you're the sweetest. Hi. Uh-oh.
Yeah, just like them.
What a sweetie. No, tail's just wagging. Oh, you want to stand right here? We'll get a picture. Perfect.
Oh.
Aw.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting us shine our light on Clearwater tonight. It's a great place.
Thank you, Mrs. Emmett. That was great. I want to take Fitz home.
Mhm.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have superintendent's announcements. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, and we appreciate the extended time to recognize, but it's a super special time for the district to have so many students and staff to recognize for amazing things happening in our schools. First up in your board docs tonight, you have our May cultural and national observances. This is also made available to the public on our website. Also remind the board that sign up is available for our year-end quality assurance reviews on our district strategic plan. You will receive the formal reports on the district strategic plan starting tonight and for the next two board meetings in June and July. But these are the school improvement plan quality assurance reviews for your sign up. Also, there's an important memo I wanted to call your attention to. This is from Mr. Blom. This is about standards-based report cards for the elementary level. And so just wanted to call your attention to that so you take a moment to read through that. And as always, if you have any questions, just let us know. And we are rounding the last final corner of the school year, so some exciting events coming up. Next week, we send all kids home on Thursday, and then the staff comes to North Central Auditorium for a big party on Friday, and certainly the school board is invited both to the last day of school, but certainly to the big party with the staff to celebrate the school year on Friday morning for the W Awards. And then we have commencement after the holiday on Wednesday, the 29th. It will be at the Farmers Coliseum at 7 p.m. and more instructions will be coming to the board for that annual event. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Or any questions? Next, we will have comments from the public. Just a reminder that comments are not to exceed 21 minutes. Each person is limited to 3 minutes and may not speak on the same topic more than once unless everyone who chooses to speak on that topic has been heard. And the following comments are not allowed: harassing, personally directed towards staff or students, obscene or irrelevant. Comments from the public? Jerry.
Hello, Jerry Phillips, 7102 Allisonville Road. For those of you who don't know me, a couple of brief comments. I have been thinking recently about the fact that MSDWT is at a crossroads, and that the importance that the board needs to make their decisions based on the next 5 years to attract the next administration. Consider what the future could be without the renewal of the next Operation Fund referendum. The tax rates in Washington Township are resulting in gentrification of the groups of people that this board is focused on extensively. As you work to try to attract and retain the best quality educators, bear in mind, there are plenty of people who may not support that effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hi, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
my name is Jillian Williams, address 4609 Common Drive, zip code 46220. I'm a parent of 3 Washington Township children. One attends North Central, another Eastwood, and lastly, Allisonville. I stand here because of the issues that my last child at Allisonville is encountering. I want to share with you a brief story about duplicity and bad behavior at Allisonville Elementary. First, I would like to provide you with some context. My son entered Allisonville Elementary in 2021, the fall semester. After several months of getting acclimated, his father and I began receiving calls to pick up our son from school. The reasons that we were being called were because of behaviors that were symptomatic of his autism spectrum disorder. I began collaborating with my son's teacher of record, who became hesitant in answering my questions about the implementation of my son's IEP. This strained communication continued until it escalated and resulted in a due process hearing and reconciliation in spring 2023. I continue to impress the importance of intentionality, transparency, and accountability to the school's principal, Washington Township Director of Student Services, Washington Township's autism specialist, and my son's teacher of record. Their response was to have faith and trust in the school. Fast forward to spring 2024, the collaboration is still fraught with a lack of transparency, intentionality, and accountability. Just yesterday, my son's request to the school to demonstrate the implementation of his services were inadequately documented, and changes to my son's IEP services were not properly documented or communicated to me. The outright disregard for communication and parent engagement at Allisonville Elementary must be addressed and corrected. Parents like me are made to feel as though we do not belong. Our concerns are minimized or outright ignored. As a result, parents like me, and particularly those who belong to my parent group of autistic children, have left Washington Township, realizing that equity, respect, and dignified treatment of our families will not happen. I asked the school board to review the processes and procedures, implementation, and accountability for special education services at Allisonville Elementary. Ensuring these items will reduce Washington Township's budget cost dedicated to settling cases with special education attorneys. It will also build stronger relationships with Washington Township families who want to believe the school district, but instead feel disenfranchised and disregarded. I also encourage the school board and Allisonville Elementary to work closely with Dr. Nataki Pettigrew to hold schools accountable for improving and committing to equitable engagement. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, if there are no further comments from the public, we will move on to our consent agenda. Dr. Taylor.
President George Davis and members of the school board, I recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this meeting. This consent agenda includes approval of the minutes of the April 24th, 2024 board meeting, minutes of the April 24th, 2024 special board meeting work session, and the memorandum of the April 27th, 2024 executive session. Approval of 4 payroll calculation summary reports, a claims docket in the amount of $8,757,195.67. A human resources report containing for classified personnel, 10 new hires, numbers 237 through 246, 5 resignations, numbers 158 through 162, 1 retirement, it's number 12, 1 termination, it's number 32. For certified personnel, there's 11 resignations, numbers 111 through 121, 2 retirements, it's 8 and 9, 1 transfer, number 17, 1 maternity, child rearing, adoption, and that's number 22. Approval of for closure of Hilltop and opening of Early Learning Center. And there are no non-competitive grants, gifts, or donations to present for the board's approval at this time.
Board, any questions?
Madam President, if there are no further questions, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Taylor.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Okay, we will now move into our action items. First up is approval of superintendent search engagement. Mr. Mace.
Good evening, board members. You have before you a contract for services for superintendent search to be conducted by what's referred to as the University Search Team. That team is a collaboration among the 4 state universities, Ball State, Indiana State, Purdue, and IU, their respective colleges of education. This is a longstanding group that has serviced many school corporations with services related to superintendent searches. And so they assist the board through the application process, as well as interviewing candidates and then assisting the board, advising the board on those decisions and then ultimate selection. But the board gets to make the ultimate determination and decision on superintendent. They provide this service through their colleges pro bono, except for mileage and expenses related to meetings. And this contract spells out those terms, as well as the term of that agreement and confidentiality related to that personnel process. Any questions?
Board, any questions?
If there are no questions, I move that we approve we approve the superintendent search engagement as presented by Mr. Mays.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mays. Next, we have the approval of the Indiana Department of Homeland Secured School Safety Grant for FY 2024-2025. Chief Lindsay.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Wilson, members of the board. We're requesting the board to approve our efforts to apply for the Indiana Department of Homeland Security School Safety Grant for the fiscal year 24-25. The MSDWT Police Department has applied for this grant, has successfully received this grant for the 10 years in the amount of $100,000. This grant is used to provide for a majority of salary and benefits for 2 SROs assigned to North Central High School. With past legislative effective July 21, schools with the ADM over 1,000 may apply for this grant up to $100,000 funding. The funds can be utilized to hire SROs, law enforcement officers for school safety, technology regarding the alert of first responders, police radios, amongst training in defensive tactics or firearms. The implementation of the DARE program, which is the Drug Abuse Resistance Educational Program, which is geared to adolescents to teach them skills on how to say no to drugs. The implementation of the intervention of narcotic dependence, education, prevention, tobacco, and health which is an in-depth program, which is a web-based sponsored program by the American Lung Association to combat against teen tobacco and vape dependency and usage. The total impact for the district would be, is a requirement of 100% match for funds. This can be accomplished by using the salary and benefits costs of existing SRO personnel. The residual funding, generally the cost of partial benefits for the officers, will be applied by the MSDWT. We have successfully implemented this cost over the past 10 years of this grant. The funding source is the Indiana Department of Homeland Security School Safety Grant. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board, Mrs. Horth-Kruger.
Thank you. Chief, a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've successfully received this grant for the past 10 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So is this more of an ongoing renewal type grant, or how competitive is it?
It is a competitive grant. We've applied for the last 10 years. Since I've been the chief, I applied for it the last 3 years and we successfully obtained that grant.
Okay, so
So-
multiple school systems will be applying, and okay, and when will you find out if you?
It will be the maybe September the 1st.
Okay,
The application process opens up June 1.
and what is the plan if for some reason it's not successfully rewarded?
Well,
I hate to even say it in front of the
yes,
universe,
yes.
but I want to ask the question.
Well, we have to work with the finance department and we keep those officers on board.
Great.
We're finally at 100% on our department.
Fingers crossed. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you much.
Madam President, if there are no further questions, I move approval of the Indiana Department of Homeland Secured School Safety Grant for fiscal year 2024-2025 as presented by Chief Lindsay.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next, we have approval of the K-12 robotics grant. Mr. Fong.
Good evening, Madam President, Mrs. George Davis, members of the board, Dr. Woodson. I'm seeking board approval this evening for the K-12 robotics competition grant that is designed to support state accredited schools in establishing or maintaining robotics competition programs in accordance with Indiana Code 2020-45.5, which provides opportunities to increase interest and improve skills in STEM through participation in competitive robotics programs that provide hands-on learning experiences, establish community partnerships to increase awareness of local workforce and post-secondary opportunities, highlight career opportunities through adult mentors, and prioritize the connection to manufacturing, machining and fabrication skills for students in grades 9 through 12. This is funded through appropriations by the Indiana General Assembly in the STEM Program Alignment Fund. This grant aligns with Indiana's priorities for STEM education and provides Indiana students with engaging STEM learning experiences that prepare them for emerging careers and educational opportunities. I will answer any questions that you have at this time about this robotics grant.
Board, any questions? Mr. Turner?
So I'm sorry, I'm looking at the actual document and it has is the in-kind and cash match required, or is that just something that is happening? Because the chart shows K-12 robotics complete competition grant request, and then it has 25% local in-kind.
This is a grant for $20,677.81 is what we
Am I looking at the wrong one?
be awarded. I think you may be looking at the piece that's broken down.
Okay, so okay, so the what is in our board documents shows us a template, but there's local in-kind and cash matches on this document. So is that not the document we're talking about?
That is the total of the $20,677.
That's the total. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a little, okay. I see the total in the bottom, but that chart kind of throws me off. So, okay.
I actually have a similar question. Is this for robotics clubs or classes?
It is, great question. This is for the robotics club at North Central and JEL. It also impacts the 3 middle schools. And we are currently working with Greenbrier Elementary to bring a robotics program there. And the idea is that we'll spread that throughout the elementary schools. But that does impact all of those schools that we will work together with and share these in-kind monies.
And then is this also a competitive grant or?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for the record, I see where I was missing some information, so we're good. You broke down what those contributions are. I did not go all the way to the bottom of the page, so that's my fault. I just want to get that on the record.
Madam President, if there are no other questions, I move we approve the K through 12 robotics grant as presented by Mr. Funk.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And you are still at the mic. Next we have approval of the freestyle contract agreement for 2024-2025.
Yes, I'm seeking board approval for the 24-25 cosmetology contract between the J. Everett Light Career Center and Freestyle Academy. Freestyle is an off-campus, off-site cosmetology program that is housed in Lebanon, Indiana. Freestyle has been a partner with the J. Everett Light Career Center for 19 years and provides cosmetology services for our Boone County students from Zionsville High School. We contract with Freestyle Academy because we do not have enough seats to accommodate the sending school request for our cosmetology program at the J. Everett Light Career Center. Freestyle Academy provides the same services and quality education with a licensed teacher that we do at the Career Center. Freestyle will be paid $3,100 per pupil enrolled for an estimated total of $84,000 for the 24-25 school year. Adjustments will be made after count day. Freestyle will invoice Washington Township Schools and the J. Everett Light Career Center at the end of each month for their monthly services. Payments will be mailed and or picked up by Freestyle from the Washington Township Business Services Office. Freestyle will be paid monthly starting July 2024 through June 2025. I'll answer any questions at this time.
Board, any questions?
Madam President, I move approval of the Freestyle Contract Agreement 2024-2025 as presented by Mr. Funk.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Next, we have approval of the 2024-2025 handbook recommendations. Dr. Pettigrew.
Good evening, Board President, Superintendent Woodson, and the board. This evening, our District Handbook Committee requests board approval of the revisions and edits for the 24-25 student handbook. Our handbook committee is comprised of 7 building administrators who are here and 7 district administrators. The responsibilities of our committee at the very beginning were to collaborate with administrators, teachers, staff, students to receive and collect recommendations for any potential handbook changes. We also wanted to ensure that we had diverse student and parent voice and is represented in our recommendations. And then we wanted to provide opportunities for feedback with our association. After 2 months of receiving and analyzing feedback, the committee is requesting board approval of these changes. To note, consistent themes were identified in the feedback, such as increased language about our homework and grading policy and information about accessing the Skyward platform. Some of the recommendations are grammatical in nature and others are updated based on current practices. For example, with the construction of North Central, there are room assignments that needed to be modified in the handbook. One major recommendation is for the change from a K-8 student handbook to a K-5 and then 6-8 student handbook. Finally, there are legislative changes from our technology and finance departments, which are now reflected in these recommendations, and that includes a new cell phone policy. At this time, our district handbook committee is requesting approval of the handbook recommendations, and our building reps are in attendance to answer any specific grade level questions you may have.
Or questions, Mr. Fensel?
Yes, I looked through the recommendations and I was just surprised as to the number and the quantity. I think maybe it's more than we've had in the past. And is what might drive that? Is that the depth that the committee went into, or is it just the number of changes that we really think we need?
Well, I don't have any perspective on the historical context. If you want to come up and so some of our Mr. Funk. But in terms of this year, we were very intentional about seeking recommendations from parents and families and students, lots of feedback from our staff, and we also made sure that the association provided feedback. We also provided opportunities for district administrators to provide feedback. And so I think some of that was duplicative. And so we'll see, for example, in elementary school, we need to update this grading policy. Well, middle school wanted to update it as well. So some of it is a bit the same, although there is a little that is different. For example, elementary recess, those type things are different. So anyone have any historical context you want to add?
Good evening, Heather Pitcock, Assistant Principal at Fox Hill. I would say over the last few years, the feedback on the handbook has been primarily from school-based administrators. So I do believe this year, making sure instructional assistants, classroom teachers, building administrators, district leaders, students, and parents all had input. It was amazing to see some of the common themes that we came across that needed to be updated or tweaked in this handbook. So I do believe, because we have a lot more feedback that we received this year, and again, that just making sure that all voices were heard led to the number of changes that we had.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the changes I looked at seemed good and reasonable. I was just realizing that it seemed like it was quite a bit more than maybe we've had in the past. So thank you for all your hard work.
And to that point, there were some recommendations that we just could not, offer to you. I mean, we often laugh about kids that say no finals and, extend lunch for 30 extra minutes. And so there's some things that we did not bring before you, but those are the most consistent ones that we saw throughout the book, or throughout the handbook.
Okay, thank you.
If no further questions, I move that we approve the 2024-2025 handbook recommendations as presented by Dr. Pettigrew.
Second.
Moved and properly second. Any discussion?
Just a comment, I want to congratulate you on being so comprehensive in your approach, and that's really great. So thank you for all that hard work. I know that added a hard level to the project. Congratulations.
It's definitely a lot. But it was interesting to read, like things you wouldn't even think about that should be noted, just for clarity and consistency. So thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Pettigrew. Whoops. Then next, that did something weird. Next, we have approval of changing GPS vendor to Zonar and tablet implementation. Mr. Reinhardt.
Good evening, members of the board, Madam President, Dr. Woodson. Michael Reinhardt, Associate Director at Transportation. As you said, our goal is to change our GPS provider. I would say the first piece of this is that, and we currently use CalAmp as a provider, and I've given you the contract with, it's Synovia that you have that tells you the contract's been signed some time back as they changed companies. But we found that our current provider isn't as consistent as we'd like, and that's created downtime for both us operationally, and then at the end of that, the parents who use Here Comes the Bus, which connects to the GPS system, have also experienced downtime. And as you can imagine, that's problematic for families. Part of why we wanted to think through Zonar and to go with them is that they have a strategic partnership with Thomas Buses, which our fleet is entirely Thomas. And part of that is they work with them on the Cummins side, which is the engines in the buses, and they are able to provide through Zonar diagnostics for buses to help us identify problems before they happen. It would help us to identify things like idle times where we're wasting money on fuel, and we can then create alerts to reach out to drivers to say, hey, bus needs to be off so we're not being inefficient with our fuel usage. So from the GPS side of it, there's additional components which I've provided both in the executive summary, but also I tried to create a supplementary set of materials so that we could talk further on that if we needed to. But the first step is providing consistent GPS with this vendor that connects well with what we do in our shop as well. The second part of this is an opportunity to get something right that unfortunately the first time wasn't implemented the way it needed to be, which is tablets. The drivers often say jokingly, but not so jokingly, they're very nice clocks. And I'd like to change that narrative into a usable tablet that actually creates and provides GPS data, not just GPS data, but also turn-by-turn directions for drivers, and addresses some of our other concerns, which would be having, for those students who have pictures, of visibility on that tablet where they can see which students are exiting at which stop. And that becomes particularly important for our kindergarten students, as we have a policy established that, hey, we have to have a parent or guardian present. And so we know where that student's exiting as well. So in addition to that, when we use our paper routes, when you get turned around or lost, it's pretty difficult to find your way back if you're subbing a route. Whereas now the tablet will reorient the bus to get to the stop, including making it an appropriate stop. For instance, we have streets we don't allow crossing on, and we would hate to, of course, not be door side where we need to be to discharge students, put them at risk. So there are multiple reasons, of course, which I've spelled out further, but in totality, the idea is to get our GPS functioning in a way that's appropriate and services our families and helps our staff, empower our drivers as much as possible. In addition, to provide turn-by-turn directions so that we can address the dynamics that we get to on routes. And then the other component I've spelled out in here more directly is system connectivity overall, including time clock and the variety of things that we use. We have some disparities between this is here, that's there, this is here, but it's an attempt to also unify all the components that we use for technology in one format. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? I just have one. Will it continue to connect to the same app, or will it require parents to have a new app?
I'm glad you said that. One of the main points of consideration that we had with this is we don't want changes for families at all. So it stays with Here Comes the Bus. The only change I'm still exploring is there's a 5-digit number. I'm fairly confident we can use that 5-digit number. If there was a change for families, it would be saying, you still have Here Comes the Bus, but here's the new number. And the reason being that I'm still exploring the association with that number that connects to CalAmp versus Zonar. But at the end of the day, parents aren't going to see at the end of it a shift.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the write-up, so thank you for being thorough on this. And if there are no further questions, I move approval. And let me get the exact terminology here. Approval of the changing the GPS vendor to Sonar and tablet implementation as presented by Mr. Reinhardt.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt. Next, we have the approval of client services agreement, speech language pathologist with Ascender Inc. Dr. Alazar.
Thank you, President George Davis, School Board, and Dr. Whitson. I am here seeking your approval to sign an agreement with Ascender to provide us with a speech language pathologist to support 2 of our openings that we have. As you know, according to the Individual Disability Education Act, also known as IDEA, as well as Article 7, which is Indiana Special Education Rules and Regulation for Special Education, public agency, school district like ours, must provide services to students if a case conference committee determines such services are necessary for students to benefit from special education as well as general education. We have 2 unfilled speech language pathologist position, Springville as well as Nora for next school year. So we would like to sign an agreement with Ascender to provide our schools with a licensed speech pathologist to support students with speech services. This contract is for the next school year. And if we ended up hiring a speech pathologist for next school year, we have a 30-day notice with this contract to remove and continue with the hire if that's the case. But from my experience, we've always had at least 1 or 2 openings. So we want to be proactive to make sure that we have somebody in place before school starts. I'll answer any questions you have.
Board, any questions?
If there are no further questions, I move that we approve the client services agreement for speech language pathologists with Ascender, Inc., as presented by Dr. Alazar.
Second?
Moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next, we have approval of agreement with service providers for occupational and physical therapy to provide service for students with IEPs. Dr. Alazar.
Thank you again. Yes, I am also here seeking your permission to sign agreement with occupational therapists and physical therapists to provide services for students with visual education program. As you know, at Washington Township, we contract occupational therapists and physical therapists. So every year I bring this up every end of May or June. So again, similar to the SLP one I just presented, according to the Individual Education Act, IDEA, as well as Article 7, Indiana Rules for Special Education, public agency like Washington Township must provide related services to students if the individual education planning team determines such services are necessary for students to benefit from special education, as well as general education. Occupational therapy and physical therapy is considered related services. This service providers are assigned to multiple schools around Washington Township School District to provide related services for students with IEP. We would like to sign an agreement with 3 physical therapists as well as 6 occupational independent contractors to provide services for our students with IEP. And this contract is also for the next school year. I'll answer any questions you have.
Board, any questions?
Madam President, if there are no further questions, I move approval of the agreement with service providers, occupational therapy, and physical therapists to provide related services for students with IEP as presented by Dr. Alazar.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Alazar.
Thank you.
Next, we have the approval of the January, February, March 2024 financial reports. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Woods, and members of the board. I bring to you this evening the quarterly report for the financials starting for the calendar year of 2024. And you'll see that on your screen. What we do each quarter for the board, we prepare regular monthly board reports, board financial reports that consist of the budget piece of each year, which has the anticipated revenue in the green column, and then also the approved certified budgets, the actual expenditure budgets, and that is in the area, that second area where there's blue. And then each month, we actually prepare a monthly report for the major funds. And our major funds are the Education Fund, Operating Referendum, and Operations Fund. And then we also do debt service funds. But during each quarter, we take each one of those months and we compile those together into a quarterly report for the board, along with attachments of each month individually. So you'll see here that those budgets and anticipated revenues for all 3 of these funds together. And then you'll see the budget quarter actuals in the yellow column. And then you'll see a budget year-to-date column for actuals. And of course, with this being the first quarter of the year, you'll see that those 2 columns match. And then down at the bottom, you'll see a summary of those figures with the year-to-date revenues, expenditures, the balances, and then also the cash balance that's added in from January 1st, which gives us a total fund balances of those three funds. And then on the right, you'll see the same type of information from the data that you see on the left in graph forms, where you'll see the budgets at the top. And that way you can see how much the percentage of the budgets are separated out between salaries, benefits, professional services, and such. So that way you can see here between the three funds, we have a little over 70-some% of these three funds that are salaries and benefits. And then you'll see the other ancillary ones and their percentages also in that pie chart. Down below, you see the budgets along with the year-to-date revenues and expenditures alike. And then in the bottom right-hand boxes, you'll see examples of the percent of the year expended, where we take the days of the month for the 3 months, divide it by 365 as a comparison to see, okay, we're about 25% through the year. How much revenue have we received? And you'll see there approximately just under 16%. And how much of our budget we have expended, a little over 22.75%. One thing that I did want to note is the reason why especially in this first quarter, that you see less revenue received than what you've expended. And that is by design, depending on the actual funds that are listed. And the education fund, because we receive money monthly from our basic grant, our tuition support. However, the other two funds, the operating referendum and the operations fund, the majority of those receipts, those revenues come from property taxes. And we receive those property taxes, the big parts of those property taxes, in June and December. So it's very common for this time of year for that revenue to be lower than the expenditures. And then it shores up in June and also then at the end of the calendar year. I would be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time for these first quarter board reports.
It's not,
Mr. Turner.
it's kind of more of a, I should call it a comment. I probably could have waited to the end, but just for the public, and again, just to make sure I'm still on the right page. When you have to submit the budget back in the fall, that is you're submitting a budget in preparation for a school year, but we have to actually budget for a calendar year, correct? Is that, or is?
Well, it's kind of mixed.
Yeah.
They have due dates where we prepare the budget, and you'll see that in the next action item
Right.
on the budget calendar. But we do prepare the budget throughout the summer, and the board has customary statutory regulations that they have to approve and do certain steps during the fall. And then the Department of Local Government Finance approves it in December. However, it runs January through December instead of school year, which a lot of things run July 1st to June 30th. So it's weird because we're doing it so far ahead of time, and it actually covers 2 different school years, half of one and half of the next.
Okay, I just want to make sure we got that back out again. Thank you. There are no further questions. I move that we approve the January, February, March 2024 financial reports as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Oh, sorry, it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Oh, motion carries 4-0. I'm sorry, we're having a bit of a technical meltdown over here.
Extra audio.
There's like a random news report. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We didn't hear it this way, but
Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, just making sure it's not, yeah, it's random talking. So I'm wondering if like the Zoom somebody's talking on the Zoom. Okay, next. Approval of the 2025 budget preparation calendar, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Woods, and members of the board. You'll see on the screen here and also in your packet, it's wild that we were just talking about the first quarter of 2024's financial reports. However, my next item here is the 2025 budget preparation calendar. So this is customary that we bring this time of year to show the public and the board when we are planning to do the budget preparation and the statutory requirements. There are three main parts of when you have to prepare each year's calendar year's budget. And the first is holding a budget workshop, and that's where we bring all the information, the details to the board and the public. And then at that time, we ask for permission to advertise. So there's different statutory requirements for advertising on Gateway, which is the public site, and then also on our Washington Township website. So we do both of those. And then the second piece is it must be at least 10 days in between. And then we hold a public hearing. So that is step 2. Then we have to wait another minimum of 10 days. And then we ask the board for the adoption of the full budget. So those are the 3 steps that are mandatory. And then we submit everything to the Department of Local Government Finance. And then they are supposed to certify our budgets by December 31st of 24 for the calendar year of 25. So what we do is we work backwards. We work backwards from the statutory dates. You'll see those in red under the information of each one of those major steps that I talked about. And then however, we work backwards then and we look at the board meeting dates and we schedule those according to the board meeting dates. So we would ask the board for approval of this 2025 budget preparation calendar as presented.
Board, any questions?
If there are no questions, I move approval of the 2025 budget preparation calendar as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Ooh, 2 more. Approval of sports medicine services agreement, Mrs. Smith.
Thanks, Madam President. Dr. Woods and members of the board, I bring to you this evening for our athletics department a sports medicine service agreement. In late fall of 2020, Franciscan Health Sports Medicine notified North Central Athletics that they could no longer provide the athletic trainers free of charge. So they used to do that years ago. So at that time, our Mr. Elkins and his team diligently worked with Franciscan negotiating a price back then and a fee. So in 2021, they were able to negotiate a 3-year contract for minimum amounts compared to what it would cost for a full staff trainers. So that time has come again, and we had to negotiate again a 3-year contract with them. We did do our due diligence, asking around, seeing what others are doing. We found out that IU Sports Medicine has totally pulled out of that with schools. If you remember, they did that with our clinic. So just in the last year, we had to do different things for our clinic and for our nursing staff. And some districts are paying up to 4 times the amount that we are. We have a long standing relationship with Franciscan that is amazing. So they love Washington Township, and they have a lot of background with Washington Township and sponsorships with that. And so we are pleased to present a 3-year agreement with them to continue this relationship. The first year for 24-25 would be $38,000. For 25-26, it would be $45,000. And for 26-27, it would be $52,000. And this would serve and provide athletic trainers to our high school and 3 middle schools. And I believe it is 3 athletic trainers and 1 physician practicing in orthopedic and sports medicine, a regular physician. So this allows us 4 individuals to assist our athletics here at Washington Township. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Mr. Frenzel?
Is this during the school day, or is this after school for extracurricular activities?
It's after school and then competitions and things like that, where they're here all the time during their practices and any kind of sporting actual events.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, if there are no further questions, I move we approve the sports medicine services agreement as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next, we have approval and adoption of second reading policies. C300, C350, C375, C400, C450, C525, C550, F176, and F275. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Woods and members of the board, I bring to you the list of policies that we did from the last board meeting where we had the first reading, and then this is the second board meeting for that. And I will review these in summary for you. The policy C300 is the programs for students with disabilities and least restrictive environment. This replaces policy 2460.02, and this is required under 511 IAC 7-42-10 and has been requested as part of the recent Title III audits. Then we have policy C350, student discipline. This replaces policies 5500, 5600, 5611. And this is through guidance from Indiana Code 20-33-8-12. Next, we have policy C375, and this is suspension and expulsion of students. This replaces policies 5605, 5610, 5610.02, and this is a required policy. Next, we have policy C400, use of restraint and seclusion with students. This replaces policies 3212, 5630, and 5630.01. And this is policy based on law, and some of the language, of course, is required by statute, and it's from Indiana Code 20-20-40-1. And then next we have policy C450, drug prevention and drug testing. This replaces policy 5530, 5530.01, 5530.02, and this is also required by law. Next, we have policy C525, medical needs at school. This replaces, for this long list, 2413, 2414, 5320, 5330, 5330.01, 5330.02, 5330.03, 5335, 5340, 5340.01, 8451, 8452, 8453, and 8453.01. And this is section of the policies are based on law, and it's also from the in the same area as the 511 IAC 7-36-9. And then next we have policy C550, student search and seizure, which is also a required policy. Next, we have policy F176, and that's unpaid meal policy, and that also is required by law. And just to restate that we talked about at the last board meeting, that here at Washington Township, we, even if we have unpaid balances, that students still receive a regular meal, that they do not receive a substitute meal here at Washington Township. Next, we have, last but not least, we have policy F275, and that has to deal with gifts and donations. I would be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding these second readings.
Just one, I'm thinking of any changes from the first reading, and I don't think any were significant, but do you recall anything that we might need to be aware of that had changed from first
Sure.
reading to
The
second
main
reading?
one that we did have was some wording in the drug testing where it talked about soliciting drug testing without reasonable suspicion. So there was one part where we did delete where we do random without suspicion. We did delete that, and there was one sentence in another paragraph that did resort to that, and we just took that one sentence out because we neglected that from the other paragraph that we did.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I move approval of the adoption of the second reading of the numerous policies as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Next, we have the approval of the 2016 and 2020 capital construction project change orders. Mr. Boots.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Dr. Woodson and members of the board. I am here this evening asking approval of 3 change orders on 3 separate projects. Those change orders are change order number 003 to Temperature Control Services for North Central Phase 2, change order number IN 21002-024 to Smoot Construction for the CEC ELC project, and change order number 001 to Powers Messer Joint Venture for the new Northview project. The total financial impact of these 3 change orders is a deduct of $335,473.24. Happy to answer any questions.
2 times in a row.
I
What's going on
know.
here?
Yeah, don't
Right.
get used to it, please.
I know.
Woo.
We still got North Central to go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we need the real Mr. Boots to show up.
Just to.
I'm not questioning a thing
No.
because you're giving me money back.
I'm just, in accounting, there's a concept of materiality. And that if, basically, if it's not significant, then you don't worry about it. And when I was in public accounting, they said if it was less than your billing rate, don't worry about it. And so I see this item here for $100.94, and I'm thinking we probably spent a lot more than that trying to deal with this. And I wish that we didn't have to, but I understand that we're being thorough and complete.
Count for the pennies.
If there's no further questions, I move approval of the 2026 and 2020 capital construction project change orders as presented by the Mr. Boots.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? I thank you for that refund.
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Boots. That concludes our action items for this evening. First information item, Washington Township School Safety and Security Update, Dr. Taylor and Chief Lindsay.
So yes, good evening again, George Davis, members of the board, Dr. Woodson, Chief Lindsay, and I just wanted to give you an update this evening on school safety matters, what we've done so far, what we've experienced so far this year, and then work that still needs to be done as we head into the new school year over the summer. So some objectives we want to accomplish this evening is we want to give you an introduction to our comprehensive vision for school safety, updates to our standard response protocols and common language and signage throughout the district, information regarding our Stop It grant, which is a 2-year implementation grant, creation of our building safety dashboard for student services and admin staff, as well as SROs, just a data update of where we are with the number of practices throughout the year and what we've seen with students. And then some matters that are under review relative to vaping, concealed weapon detection, and then hallway passes. And so first off, just kind of want to share what is EchoShield. EchoShield is truly a vision for comprehensive school safety planning. It is about protecting the ecology that exists within our schools. Any of you science majors out there, you're well aware of ecology. That's that interaction between our organisms, our living organisms, and the environment that they exist in. And so I was at a professional development one time, and the facilitator talked about it didn't matter what initiatives happened in schools. Nothing was more important than a healthy ecology in a school. And so our safety practices, we want to make sure protect those ecologies and nurture strong ecologies for optimal learning. Maslow's hierarchy also talks about how in order for self-actualization to occur, which means in this case, students being able to learn and reach their full potential, these basic needs need to be met, right? And so you have the very bottom basic need of food, water, clothing, shelter. The very next need is safety. So in Washington Township, we try not to just talk about safety and say that safety is a priority. We want to be about it. And so hopefully tonight's a snapshot of how we're walking that walk in our community. And so what are the critical tenets of EcoShield? We have 4 tenets. 1 is prevention, 2 is preparedness, 3 is respond, 4 is restore. Traditionally in Washington Township, we have done a lot of work on step 2. And for those of you that have served on district safety committees, you know we revisit that emergency preparedness plan. That's a big part of making sure we have an ongoing cycle of practices and planning that happens in our schools when an emergency occurs. But that is one facet of comprehensive school planning. Prevention is all about what are we doing, what are the practices we're putting in place to stop incidents from occurring before they do. How are we checking in on students' mental health needs? How are we checking in on staff mental health needs? So that prevention, that tier 1 is incredibly critical to our work with EcoShield. And then 3 is respond, and that is our ability to react swiftly to mitigate and minimize the harmful effects of a tragedy, a crisis, or an emergency in our schools. And then restore is all about how do we work to build back up that physical and psychological health or the health of that ecology in that school. And so what does that look like? And so our work, as we are analyzing what we are doing, will fall under one of those 4 areas. And so when it comes to that Stop It Safety Grant, if you remember last spring, we applied in partnership with CIESC as they partnered with other school districts around Marion County to have access to all of these free 2-year resources. And I want to share with you a little bit about those. So first one is the Stop It, Help Me reporting feature. Currently, we have the See Something, Say Something reporting feature. We will continue that practice, but on the back end, the system behind that supports See Something, Say Something will be replaced with this Stop It, Help Me version, which is app-based. I can literally from my phone do an anonymous tip. I can do an emergency 911 alert if I need it. I also will have access to mental health resources and supports. And from the hours of 4 p.m. to 7 a.m., I can issue my own help where I can get crisis incident support for myself. So if I'm experiencing suicide ideation, I can go into this app and I can log in how I'm feeling and that I need help. And someone monitors this through those hours of 4 p.m. to 7 a.m. And they can bypass the school system and go right to emergency responders within the community. And so we do believe this is going to be more efficient and more comprehensive in our ability to respond to community needs of our students and staff for that matter, regardless of time of day. So we're in the process of onboarding that this summer. We are also doing Rachel's Challenge. Rachel's Challenge is an opportunity for our students to engage in all school assemblies, as well as student leadership, facilitation over this kind of theme of kindness, which starts out of Rachel's story. Rachel is an actual person who was one of the first students killed in the tragedy of Columbine back in the late 90s. And they share this story in an all-school assembly format with our students. It's a pretty amazing story. And then we ask our students, whether that's a student leadership group, a combination of different student advocacy clubs coming together and work on what do they want to do with this messaging? How do they want to support kindness, chain reactions of kindness in our schools throughout the year. So that will happen in all 6 through 12 grades next year. Additionally, we have Starling Minds. Starling Minds is a digital mental fitness resource for all staff. So at any time of day and night, I am struggling personally with mental health challenges relative to, say, anxiety. I can go on to this app. I can log in with my computer or my phone. I can enter in what I'm struggling with, and all of these modules come up that can take me through exercises that can help me personally combat some of the challenges I may be experiencing with, say, anxiety or depression, with the idea of it being very much like a physical exercise app that maybe you have on your phones. The focus is mental fitness and mental priming and training. And so that's a free app for all staff as well. Terrace Metrics is a universal screener for social emotional health and behavior. We are working on piloting that in one of our elementary schools right now, Willow Lake, with a couple of 3rd grade classrooms where we screen students based on a resiliency continuum. And the beauty of Terrace Metrics is it provides free curriculum resources that tie to exactly what that data means. Traditionally, we've not had that. We get screening data and then we have to go figure out the resources on our own. Maybe we invest in other resources, whereas Terrace Metrics, which was developed by a school psychologist, has all that built in. So we are trying that as a pilot in our elementary, in one of our elementaries for next year as well. And then finally, we do have access to family and guardian mental health webinars, which are topical based in English and Spanish next year, covering topics such as vaping, school avoidance or school attendance, some areas that are pertinent to what we're seeing in our data right now that we think will help inform our community using a webinar format for that. So I wanted you to be aware of that. That's a 2-year implementation cycle. And the idea from that is we learn from it and we find out which of these resources we may want to continue moving beyond the 2-year cycle with. So if the Stop It Help Me we find extremely valuable, then we'll have to make some decisions moving forward if we're going to choose to invest in that and use resources to invest in those exercise or those resources down the road. But the beauty with CIESC is they have these vendor partnerships and we can get these at a discounted rate if we do choose to continue them. I'm going to have Chief talk about our revised standard SRPs.
As you can see on that slideshow, but right there, this past year, myself along with Dr. Taylor, we looked at some of our emergency preparedness plans, and we figured that we really do need to simplify some things. And to keep with the fidelity of the I Love You Guys, who is the creator and the owner of those new cards, we decided to implement that into our emergency preparedness plan, and giving those cards to each individual staff member that they place behind the ID card. It pretty much simplifies everything we were doing, those little red flip books we used to have. Instead of having to carry that whole red book out, they have quick access to, if we have a hole, they know exactly what to do. In any case emergency that we may have, it's readily available on their ID. They can look at it as quick reference. Also, Dr. Taylor and I, we have gone to every school in the district, and we have talked with several staff members there. We've done some safety audits to see where we stand as a district, where our employees stand in the district, and understanding what they need to do in case of emergency. We've also received feedback from them as well. So this small tool right here has been a great help. The consensus of people that we talk with, they really do like having those cards, and they even say the students, they see those and they are even asking questions about it. So that is one of the changes we have made in reference to the preparedness.
The other thing we worked on this year was we needed a data warehouse where all of our practices, protocols, admin guidelines were stored, because there's a number of practices that we've had to take on, like threat assessments, unfortunately, suicide ideation processes, DCS reporting, and all that. So I wanted to take a quick moment and show you an example of what that dashboard looks like, where admin and our admin, our student service staff members, and SROs have access to the dashboard so that they can find all the resources that they need in this tool. This. And so this dashboard, basically any practice that we work on or communicate out in the district, we house it on here. So all staff, not all staff, excuse me, but admin, student service team members, which are counselors, school social workers, SROs, they have a modified version of this. They can log on here and they can get those protocols and practices. And then all of this generates data for us. So we've done a lot of work with crisis response planning this year. That information is all housed here. We've done a lot of work with setting up front office control standards. That work is under construction, but it will be housed here. Every school's emergency preparedness plan is housed here. Those SRP protocols and training videos are housed here as well. So this information is just readily available so that our staff have the access that they need when they need it to administer our safety protocols in a timely and efficient manner. I will say we also created an app. So on our phones right now, we have an app where we can pull up exactly what's on that dash. And so where that comes to being important is if in the event of an emergency, we are working with first responders, chief or myself are able to pull up each school's map so that we can share map locations with first responders as they come on scene in a more efficient process than we've been able to do in the past. I did want to give you a quick snapshot of the safety data. I'm not going to dwell on any particular one of these, but because of that safety dashboard and how we've streamlined our work, we're now able to make more informed decisions based on what the data is telling us. So we review this data each quarter with leaders in the district, and it helps us gauge where do we need to offer more support, go after more resources. I will tell you the other thing this points out to me is anytime I hear someone say, school just needs to be about academics. We just need everybody to focus on academics. This data reinforces to me, if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy, we have students who have a lot of needs we've got to meet before we can get them in that place to learn at a high level. And so with a comprehensive approach, using that vision of Echo Shield, we do feel more confident that we're taking the right approach to ensuring we are getting to those students so we can put them in that best possible position to learn. Next up, we are going to continue working on our vaping prevention. Vaping is, as you know, continues to be a nationwide challenge in our schools, and we need to be proactive with regard to preventative work in that area, not just the reactive and the punitive consequences of vaping. And so we're working this summer in June. We've got a meeting with some stakeholders to really work on the proactive end of things as well as the reactive end, from curriculum to bringing in speakers to looking at vaping diversion programs, as well as, we've piloted some Halo systems at the high school to act as a deterrent and help us be more efficient and responsive to when vaping is occurring in our schools. Concealed weapon detection, that is under review in Washington Township. We do know other districts have gone to daily screenings of students for concealed weapons. Washington Township is reviewing that. Logistically, it is challenging at a high school of 3,700 students. And so we have brought in a vendor to do an evaluation just at North Central alone of tell us how this would make sense at a school like in North Central to do a daily screening of all students. How can we do it efficiently? What are the staffing implications of doing that? What are the logistics of operations and school hours transitions for that? And so we've gotten some really good feedback. We do have a proposal from Evolve Tech. These are expensive devices. We have other school systems that have spent up to $700,000 to over $1 million to beef up their concealed weapon detection. And it's an unfortunate nature of school safety, but it is a reality and something that we're taking very serious and want to be very mindful of. We did in our last district safety meeting, we brought in one of these devices to show the group and have them learn from the vendor about it because they have the previous concern with this type of support was, well, schools aren't prisons. They shouldn't be outfitted like prisons. With modern technology and advances in this, though, they can make this very subtle. And so we know other districts, Warren, Lawrence, and Perry, have all made this investment, just to mention those few, but I know others are looking at this as well. And then finally, we are working with one of our schools, one of our middle schools, to pursue e-passing systems. Traditionally, we've had an antiquated old paper pencil type pass system, and we do have the technology. It's out there. It's growing, it's advancing, it's improving, which it needed to. That would help us know who's supposed to be in our hallways and who's not, who shouldn't be in the hallway together. And so all of those, that technology is under review right now with Eastwood Middle School. They are trying some things, and we're looking forward to continuing that pilot next year and learning more from their e-pass process. So with that, Chief and I are happy to answer any questions the group may have.
Board President, can I share something? What you just heard is an enormous amount of systems improvement for our school safety and security. I just wanted to share, Superintendent, I know some of my decisions are not always popular. I'm not sure Dr. Taylor was thrilled when I did some reorg and reassignment and assigned him safety and security, but I just wanted to publicly applaud him for the systems approach that he has put into these improvement areas that you see, working with chief, working with school staffs, collaborating with teachers. This is an enormous amount that he just presented to you in under a year's worth of work, so kudos.
I've been attached to the hip. Every day there's something. Every day, it's on the other side. So,
Mr. Turner.
Yeah, so, well, it used to be that the biggest task that Dr. Woodson would put on an assistant was the calendars for the school. I remember those days when the master calendars used to be a pain. But anyway.
That's still there.
Oh, it is? I'm sorry.
Appreciate you bringing that up.
Sorry. But my question, I actually had two questions. One was about the plans, the preparation plans that are in schools, the cards you were showing us. And I probably should have asked my wife this, but do you guys still, do the schools still go through like drills for like run, hide, fight kind of intruder kind of things? Or is that is that just something you just go by the card and hope to know where you go?
No, they still actually go through their drills, sir. They do. They have fire. They have to have man-made drills.
Okay.
Whatever that man-made drill may need to be, whether they can choose themselves, but they do have to go through the actual training in itself.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, it's a real short question. Concealed weapon piece, you mentioned the cost, the potential cost to do it. Is that a like $700 to $1 million initial cost, annual cost, or a maintenance,
Great question. So the majority of that is initial upfront just for purchasing the product basically, but then there's an annual subscription that is still not cheap. It's around 30,000, I believe, for an annual subscription. But yeah, the majority of that cost is upfront for the technology. So yeah, it is not cheap. But I will say CIESC also is getting into this game, and they're working with Evolve on some things. So I am hopeful that CIESC will work through some collaboration to get us some reduced rates for that as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Horth-Kruger.
Because I'm happy and always interested in sitting in those in the Public Safety Committee meetings. This was the topic of discussion, the concealed weapon detection, quite a bit at the last meeting. I guess my question to you both is, what can you explain to us or lay out for us what your time frame is on researching and talking to people, talking to stakeholders, and by stakeholders I mean students and parents and teachers, et cetera. And then at what point once your decision is made, if you decide you think this is the way to go forward, when can this board anticipate you coming back with a proposal?
Yeah, so great question. The timeline, we need to start with the executive team to make sure that we have a thorough timeline and process. So the process has not been drafted yet. And the reason why that's not been drafted yet is because we've just been doing some initial vetting of what is out there, what's available, what are other districts doing. I will say I have had the privilege of talking to student council leadership at North Central High School. We had a great conversation with them. I was surprised at their feedback when they said, no, I mean, we're pretty much used to it. When you go to events now, you go to the airport, you go anywhere, you're walking through these devices. We don't think it would be that big a deal to be implemented here. So we've had some preliminary conversations with that. We absolutely wanted to bring Evolve over to North Central to have them look at logistically what they would recommend. So they've given us a proposal. They actually just sent that today. Yeah. So we need to vet that proposal, and then I need to come before the exec team after Chief and I have a chance to really hammer out some more details and lay out a timeline. Some districts have onboarded like right after fall break. Perry Township just onboarded, implemented at Southport and Perry Meridian. Coming back from fall break, they took the entire first quarter to just kind of talk to stakeholders, have people view it, have people discuss it. So they were very strategic about when they were going to start implementing this, making sure people knew what was coming and why and how it was going to work. To which they've been able to actually back off some of their procedural adjustments because they've become so efficient. They added like 5 minutes to arrival. They no longer needed that 5 minutes because students know the drill. So I would say at some point next year, we have to decide if we're going to move in this direction, and then we got to look at what is the appropriate onboarding time to do that. So my hope would be that we would look similar to a Southport to a Perry model like that, or you back it to around mid-year, give first semester to really do a thorough review. And if we make the investment, we do it to start second semester.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have one question. Going back to, I think it was the Rachel's Challenge thing. Maybe not. I'm not really, it was a lot. But you mentioned the app that monitored crisis from like 4 to 7, and it would bypass us with HIPAA compliance and confidentiality stuff. Would we get reports back on those things, or
Yes.
would the student just disappear and we not know why?
Yes, so that's a great question. That's the Stop It, Help Me application.
Okay.
And what I mean by bypass is in that time frame, they will, if the alert rises to the level, they will go to like IMPD or 911, and then they will also come to us.
Okay.
But they won't rely on us to deal with it first because of the level of what's being reported. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
We will know. We will.
is that also the case during the school day? I know technology rules are changing, but say we have a student on a bus, they have access to their phones and the crisis level rises. Is that in our hands?
So my
or does
understanding is
it-
during the school day, there are 3 priority people who will receive that high level alert in addition to your emergency responders. That's chief, number 1, that's lieutenant, number 2, and that's myself, number 3. So it will be during the instructional day, it will come to us simultaneously.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys. Almost there. Next, we have our year in review of the district strategic plan priority 2. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Dr. Woods, President George Davis, and members of the board. I come to you this evening to provide an update on our progress toward priority 2 of our MSDWT strategic plan, which is the hiring and retention of a high quality and diverse staff. As we traditionally do during these updates, I will be referencing the annual 23-24 DSP Quality Assurance Review document that is in your board documents this evening and linked there. And I will be starting on page 26 of the document, which is where priority. Second. Page 26.
Of 49.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Woodson.
I can share while you're finding that page that we do have the next two board meetings that will complete the rest of the priorities. So June 12th board meeting will review priority 3 and 4, and July 24th board meeting, it'll be priority 1, which allows all of the year-end academic data to be completed and in for that July board meeting.
So on page 26, we begin with our aspirational goal 2A, which is to aggressively pursue strategies to hire teachers and administrators who represent the community that we serve. Based on the school, we track 2 items to measure our progress. The first is the number of BIPOC applicants that we hire in the district who report that they were recruited by a Washington Township employee. As you may remember, when we started with this strategic plan, we found a significant gap between white employees who we were hiring saying that they had been recruited to the district by an employee versus staff of color that were hired and reporting that they had been recruited specifically by a district employee who told them about that job. So as you can see from the chart provided, we've been steadily increasing the percentage that we expect in this area, and this year's data target was to have 45% of the staff of color that we hired reported that they had been recruited specifically or had the job shared with them by a Washington Township employee. And this year we hired a total of 23 BIPOC teachers and administrators, and of those, 13 of the 23, or 57%, reported that they had heard about the position from a Washington Township employee who encouraged them to apply. Based on this, we exceeded our goal of 45% for this year, and in total, we are up 22% from our baseline year of 2020-2021. The second data point that we track in this area is the number of candidates of color who report that they were recruited via a specific strategy. So examples of those strategies would be recruitment at our minority teacher recruitment fair. It's a terrible name. I acknowledge that. We work with other districts on it. An HBCU recruitment fair, recruitment at, for example, like Black Expo, or recruitment via a job or ad posting from a location that is specifically geared toward candidates of color. Our goal for this year was to have 15% of our candidates hired report, and our actual number in this area was 0. We did make contact with educators via these methods, but ultimately none of those were specifically referenced by one of the candidates that we hired. We continued to look for new spaces and new places to continue to do that. On page 28 of the document, I would like to point out the impact of those aspirational goals and that what they've had in our buildings. So on page 28, you can see the overall makeup of the staff at our schools. And those schools highlighted in blue or in green are locations where the percentage of BIPOC staff has changed significantly since 2019. Additionally, you may note that even those schools that haven't had a significant change in the percentage, we have increased our staff. So even in those buildings where the percentage has not increased, we have more staff of color working in those spaces than there were in 2019. I'd particularly point out West Lane Middle School, which is in green there, that has made significant strides in the makeup of their staff. Overall, as you can see from the bottom, I am pleased to share we've increased the total number of certified staff of color working in Washington Township from 107 in 2019 to 166 in 2024. Currently, 1 in 5 certified staff members in Washington Township are certified staff of color. We still have a lot of work to do, but our improvement has been significant. One area of new work this year that I would like to highlight that's impacted this goal, and I know it's a little silly, but it is the work that we've done with Frontline, where I came to you and shared that we were still doing like paper onboarding with many of our staff. And I will tell you, we are able to capitalize much more quickly on hires through the frontline system. We get a recommendation to hire from a principal, and within 24 hours, that recommended candidate is seeing their onboarding documents. They are showing up in their frontline account. They are able to start clicking. And I feel like we aren't losing people as they sit in this limbo of, well, I think I'm supposed to get contact from HR. I hope it comes soon. We're in a very competitive environment, and being able to shoot those documents out to people and have them start right away is having a significant impact. On pages 31 and 32 of the document, you will find data on goal 2B, which is to improve our retention of effective and highly effective teachers. In 2019, we established a baseline percentage of 10.8%, and our goal has been to reduce that number by roughly 1% a year since that time. I will remind you that that data target was set prior to a global pandemic and a period referred to as the Great Resignation. So our original goal, which we have not moved, was to reduce our effective resignations by effective and highly effective teachers to 7%. As you can see, our percentage this year was at 11.2. As I've shared, we've seen significant impact from the global pandemic. However, nationwide trend data and our own data supports that I believe that we've reached the peak and we are now headed back toward pre-pandemic levels. So you can see from the chart, we were 12.5% in 21-22, 13.4% in 22-23. Our data and the trend data nationwide would point to the fact that that 13.4% should be the high water mark, and we are now down back to 11.2. We're about 1% away from where we were pre-pandemic, but my hope is that at this time next year, I'll be telling you that we've returned to pre-pandemic levels of resignations by effective and highly effective teachers. We have added some new efforts in this area that are new since our end of year review last year. For the first time this year, we implemented what are called Collab Connect sessions for staff of color in Washington Township, and those have been led by Shauna Red, our Assistant Director of Human Resources, and Lakita Keith, our Human Resources Coordinator for certified staff. And those two ladies are doing an amazing job with this program. The sessions are a unique opportunity for staff of color to come together beyond just their school locations to realize the volume and connectivity across staff of color within the district. And the feedback from the two initial sessions have been overwhelmingly positive, and we have future events planned based on the feedback that we have already received. We're also very optimistic regarding our review of our employee retirement accounts as we get underway with that process. I have worked with a couple of other districts that have engaged in this process, and I will tell you that I genuinely believe that as folks come to better understand the retirement pieces that are in place for them in Washington Township and have easy access to understanding those funds and where they are and when they become accessible, that it will lead to higher rates of retention. As I talk to many of our teachers, they truly just don't have their head wrapped around where that money is, when that money kicks in. And I think additional education in that space, from what I've heard from colleagues who have engaged in that activity, it will improve retention. I was also able to personally complete courses through Cornell University and earn a certificate in diversity, equity, and inclusion in HR. There were courses in countering bias in the workplace, diversity, equity, and inclusion in practice, driving engagement, workplace disability inclusion, and fostering an inclusive environment. The instruction in those areas through Cornell were excellent, and being able to connect with HR professionals around the country was a really unique experience. One of my classes was predominantly executives from Target, and to hear how they approach things was just unique because I'm always in the school space, so it was great. If you look at the top of page 34 in your document, goal 2C is focused on the development of our climate audit for our schools. As you know, we selected the Panorama School Teacher and Staff Surveys as our instrument, and we used that tool for the first time in 2022. And then once we had comparison data from 22 and 23, we set benchmarks for this year. And as you can see from the top of page 35, we achieved 14 of the benchmarks we set. We made progress toward 8 of the benchmarks we set, and we failed to meet 18 of the benchmarks we set. Those are in the documents for your review, and they include the results from the individual buildings. Panorama survey information has been shared with our building level principals, and they will utilize that data to work with their school improvement planning teams as they continue to develop and refine their own school improvement plans. Additionally, we will continue to have access to the exit interviews that we conduct via Upbeat, and that is a nationally normed exit interview process. As I've shared with you before, we had our own exit interviews. We didn't know if 53% was a good number or a bad number when we got responses, and that national norming helps to tell us where do we sit. And also for the first time this year, we conducted stay interviews for staff in 5 of our schools that were conducted by the Central Indiana Educational Service Center. They spent 2 days at Clearwater, at Nora, at Greenbrier, West Lane, and at the J. Everett Light Career Center, and they conducted both a survey and in-person interviews with staff. They're designed to capture staff feelings about the school and the district and why they choose to stay in Washington Township schools. They'll be conducted in 5 additional schools next year, and once we've done them after the following year, we will come back around. So every school will get that data every 3 years on a 3-year cycle, where in addition to their general panorama data, they will get a deeper dive conducted by these interviews, and we will have those reports to share with you as well. And I'm proud to say that we've substantially through that really improved our insight into the employee experience between having the panorama data, which captures all staff and their responses, exit interview data that specifically targets people who are leaving the district and why they do so, and then stay interviews that tell us why people are staying. I really do feel like we have a comprehensive look at the overall employee life cycle here in Washington Township. We're still working through, we just got the stay interview data here in the last couple of days, so that will be going out to principals, and we've just scratched the surface of it. But I think it's gonna complete the 3rd leg of that and really give us information across the entire employee experience. So this concludes my presentation of our progress towards strategic plan goal number 2, and I am pleased to answer any questions we have at this time.
Oh, I did.
Mr. Turner.
A couple questions. So on the retention data.
Yeah.
First of all, the hiring piece, great. I know it's a struggle just getting, folks of color to go into teaching. I mean, it's a little struggle to do that from just not here in the city, but just overall. But on the retention piece, understanding retirements are excluded. Of the number, the percentage that you're showing, and based off your exit interviews, do you disaggregate, do you break down the, hey, I'm moving, versus, I'm sick and tired of you guys kind of answer? So is that number inclusive of those that are just, I'm moving, I'm leaving the district, I'm leaving town or whatever, versus I'm just tired?
Yeah, I don't have the final numbers for this year, but to your point, what I'm most concerned about, there are a couple of factors, right? If I'm leaving the state, my spouse and I have decided to relocate, or I individually have decided to relocate, I'm leaving the Indianapolis area, that doesn't overly concern me. The other area that I find, and through my own individual experience, I will acknowledge this, when folks are leaving us to take a position in the district where they live and where their kids go to school, I understand that that is a significant motivating factor that we may or may not be able to have insight to. Our biggest area of concern is, yes, when are people leaving us as a 7th grade social studies teacher to go become a 7th grade social studies teacher in another district where they do not live, correct? And I can tell you that number, we haven't done the full year because we've still got, is relatively low. So the bulk of that 11.2% is folks who are doing what you described, either leaving the area or those other pieces.
I'm sorry if I didn't read all the comments or the commentary or the narrative in that part. So because when you highlight yourself, when you highlight the fact that you're like red, is it truly, maybe we didn't structure that metric
yeah.
the correct way, right? Because retention, you really want to try to do the stay interviews, get people to stay or whatever it is. But if I'm leaving because I'm just moving, I mean, we shouldn't be dinged for that, if you will. And I don't know if there's a way to put it in narrative form or I don't know.
Principals feel the same about their priority too in their school
Yeah, they
improvement
do.
plan.
They do.
As they've shared with us.
Yeah. So for our next strategic plan, Mr. Turner, we will continue to work on that and incorporate, but I have thought the same thing.
Yeah, it's a
It
point
is
well
our-
taken.
Kind of
Right. Yeah.
put this together and
Yeah.
you guys put this together and I shouldn't say you guys, the administration team put this together and we tried. And so I think there's a way for us to try to adjust that.
That's good feedback. I also don't want to give an easy out, right?
No,
Which is
no.
just, oh, well, we can just
we're
miss
just-
that day. So it's finding that balance of how do you be realistic, but also I don't want people to just feel like, oh, well, that was people moving, because sometimes it's not.
Right.
Yeah,
They moved because of you. No,
exactly.
No,
They left the whole state. No.
the last one real quick. It goes to the last, 39 or 38 where you talked about 3A. Or you didn't talk about 3A, did you? Sorry.
No, 3A is not. That will be a future report.
Oh, then I'll hold that question.
I am so glad. I
You're
know
off the
very
Dr.
little
Kaiser's
about 3A.
thrilled.
I will acknowledge
should've
I am
given
not
us the whole
prepared
document,
to
man.
answer questions about 3A.
Never mind. Good. Sorry.
Ms. Horstberger. I'll try to clean up for you here. So,
No, I do have a question. I know that for the few times that you've reported to us, given us an update on this, there has been the consistent message that going to some of the job fairs, et cetera, we're not giving us results. So at what point do we say, okay, we've tried, that's a waste, that's not a waste of time, but it's shall we allocate our resources, human and otherwise, to other initiatives?
Yeah.
And maybe there aren't any other initiatives, so I don't know.
No, it's an ongoing piece. There is an element of where you do feel like you need to have presence, right? Like, I described Black Expo.
Absolutely.
And as we continue to do that, if we get one great teacher, and we have gotten a couple over the course of our time, it's just not on an annual basis. I will say, specific to that event, we're also trying to narrow. They shifted and moved to a general career fair. We're trying to get presence at the educator fair, which I think probably will lead to perhaps, and we have had years where our local that we have done has generated. It didn't this year, but it is an ongoing evaluation. You're right.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not advocating that we not, but, and I do think that it's important that we have a presence at some of these very important initiatives and community events that happen in Indianapolis. But if there's something that is not yielding any results, that is very time intensive, it's probably worth a review.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Smith, we have to put you first next time.
I was waiting for him to go over 3, so.
Final information item, ESSER grant budget review.
Yes. As you recall, we do a review for our ESSER, which is our grants that we received during the pandemic twice a year. So wanted to give an update on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. ESSER 2 did finalize in 2023. we had to have everything encumbered by September 30th and then expended by December. So we did do that, and I wanted to kind of show you how the piece of the pie ended up for each one of our categories that we created. And you'll see there our academic achievement was 2.4 million. Our PPE and learning supplies, that one was a lot lower, because if you recall, our CARES 1, the first session of the distribution of the dollars, was basically 99% of that was PPE and learning supplies to help during those emergency services. And operations, you'll see there at 2.2, almost 2.3 million. And then the biggest piece of the pie at that time was staffing. That's at almost $5.2 million. And that had a varying different things that we have there. You'll see that in the white box there for different extra duty stipends. There was a lot of different responsibilities during that phase of the pandemic. And then you also see the vaccines, professional development, extra supports, materials, and resources. So that total was just shy of $10.3 million. And then we were able to claim $211,700 of indirect cost. And that is for overhead for administering the grant. And like I said, that one was totally finished. Now since then, we have regular reporting that we have to do that is very convoluted. And kudos to Washington Township because of the way that we were strategic in our thought process and our planning of how we developed and did our regular planning for our ESSER grants. And if you recall, our administration, our executive leadership meets on a monthly basis to go over these. We have an extensive budget sheet that we look at every single month, that we update and we project out. And with these required reports that are from the state has helped aid us into being able to complete those regularly when they're requested. I have some communications with some colleagues across the area, and they weren't so strategic in doing those type of preparations. So when it comes time that they have to fill out those, it's a really long, egregious process for them. So I am really glad that we had the strategic foresight to be able to do that planning and all the preparations with our evaluators and everything that we've had for our ESSER programs. Next, you'll see the ESSER 3. So of course, we're still in the thick of this. We're winding down this year with this one being so large. Of course, it's $23 million. This one is the same aspect of ESSER 2, the time frame. Everything needs to be encumbered by September 30th of 2024 and then expended by December. And you'll see there, this is what we have expended so far in each one of those categories that we established. Our academic achievement, so far, the budget piece of it is the large number that you see, that 13 million, and 91.37% has been expended to date. And then our next highest one, of course, is the staff area, where it was 4.5 million, and we have about 94.56% expended at the time of this report. And then we still had some operational expenditures where we did HVAC air quality improvements, and that has been completed for the grants, so that's 100% expended. And then other instructional supplies also are at 100% expended. So we are continuing to meet on our monthly basis. Our Human Resources Department, Dr. Kaiser and his staff has done an excellent job with the communication with any kind of staffing or any kind of extra supports that we've had throughout these 3 years. So making efforts in what we're doing during that time. If you've heard through legislative and just information about the ESSER cliff, from districts not preparing that, I can honestly say that Washington Township has prepared and was diligent in how we divided up our monies and how we allocated everything to ensure that our district will not have an ESSER cliff, so to speak. So we're very proud of that, and I just got back from an IASBO annual conference, Indiana Association of School Business Officials, and they actually had one of the courses on that. And when I was sitting there in one of those one of their things that they did, they indicated at that time, all these preparations that we already took. And they were talking about how a lot of districts are just doing that at the 11th hour, in preparation of discontinuing the ESSER funds. And I was happy to just to sit there and go, yep, we've done that. Yep, we've done that. Yep, we've done that. So that was very nice to know that we were in good standings with that. But so this is the information you'll see here. The indirect cost for this one is quite a bit higher than the other ones, and that was because of ESSER 3 let us take the higher percent of our indirect costs. We always have two rates, restricted and unrestricted. So it let us take the higher rate of our indirect costs, and that's why that is that 1.9 million compared to several hundreds of thousands of dollars like all of our other grants that you see. But I would be happy to answer any questions. We'll have one more of these, of course, at the end of this year, either the December board meeting. If not that one, then that first one in January, where we will shore up all this for the board and the public.
I wanted to share also that we do have areas of ESSER funding that will continue to be funded from district funds. And so if you refresh your board docs, I did put in that very large budget document that Mrs. Smith just referred to, but you'll see it has every expenditure that we've ever spent on ESSER or our spending. And then it has a column saying, is this item recommended for funding beyond ESSER? And if that's a yes, what fund will that come from? And so we've been very deliberate to identify early and budget for areas that we know needed additional funding. So if you're interested in all of those areas, it is listed under ESSER 3.0.
Mr. Fensel?
My question was going to be if the outside evaluators are still evaluating.
Yes. Yes.
And I was curious as to if there were particular components of this that we wanted to continue, and where did they tend to center around? And maybe you would point me to the spreadsheet to look.
Supports to kids. I can tell you easily off the bat there, the additional funding, which obviously we can't fund $40 million of continued funding. So it's very, very limited, but they're mainly targeted towards supports for kids.
Interventionists and
Not the licensed interventionist. That is a very large ticket item that we cannot sustain, but one was mentioned earlier tonight with some very key staff members that will have continued funding that you'll see on that list. One that I can think of is multilingual family liaisons. So there are some supports that we have found extremely valuable that we have looked at various ongoing budgets to support. But I can tell you, every administrator or staff member can say, I've got a reason why this should be continued funding. I mean, there have been powerful supports through the ESSER funding, but we can't continue to support millions and millions of dollars in addition every year. But it has been powerful.
That money tree just didn't grow fast enough
did
that I
not.
planted, so it couldn't come up with $36 million.
all right, thank you.
Oh, I will say as a comment, just to keep us here till 8:30. So to your point about folks, whether it's, politicians or just people, concerned about public education, bringing up the fact that this money's going away and what are you going to do? And every time I get to tout what Washington Township has done, they go, oh, really? Yeah, we're not what you think we are. So just want to let you know, thank you for all that work and the team that put that spreadsheet together and tracked all that. So I appreciate that. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Thank you. I'm assuming there's nothing else for the good of the order. Mr. Fensel, can I have my book back?
I've got to read it for a little bit.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, all in favor?
We need a second.
Second.
All opposed? We're adjourned.
All right.